Well, greetings, Amir.
Hey Bruce, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for doing this, and congratulations on being inducted into the Pantheon. I think you might have that
Yeah,
plaque.
thank you so much. I'm honored. Um, it's beautiful, beautiful
It is
plaque.
beautiful. Yeah, you're right. You're
Thank you very
right.
much. Bruce Whipple
Yeah,
was inductee in June 2024.
June
Really
2024.
honored. Thank you very
Correct.
much.
I was thinking about just the time frame, and we all want it to happen more quickly. You had commented that if you did a few things, maybe you could have grown more quickly. But from our meeting back in the end of 2019, where you did a course, I don't know if it was my first course, but it was one of the early courses. Then you did some one-on-one mentoring that we did together, but not all that long. I think it was 4 months. Then you entered an advanced group coaching for a couple of months, and then pretty much you put a board together and we're off and running. But your story's a good one, so why don't you talk a little bit about how you came to this country and what initially was what you ended up doing?
Sure. Well, I was born in Iran.
Yeah.
I came to America when I was 5 years old. I was raised by my dad. He was, ex-military guy. He was in the Iran and Iraq War, so he was very disciplinary type of person. I think from the age of 10 years old, he was dragging me to work with him and all the crazy businesses that he was doing. And I think I learned from him what not to do in business and, not to be the control freak and solopreneur and things like that. So yeah, I grew up in Atlanta.
What
And
was he? Was he an entrepreneur as well?
yeah, he's always had some kind of business, whether it's a mechanic shop or a restaurant, a bakery. None of anything that he knows about. He
Yeah.
just all of a sudden one day decides he wants to open a restaurant. And of course, I'm the number one employee.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was a pretty bad student in school. I got kicked out a few times, and he wouldn't let me just sit at home. He would make me work every day. And when I grew up, when I became 18, 19 years old, I went off to college and I started to do my own thing. And I had some odd jobs here and there, maybe for 6 months or so after I left home and in college, and I decided that I was just gonna do something, or I had to sell something. And I had sold cars before for my dad when he had a mechanic shop. So I went out and just applied for my dealer license, and I got my dealer license, and I was able to attend auctions and buy cars at wholesale prices and then sell them at retail prices. And I did that for the spring semester of that year. I was, selling 4 or 5 cars a month, making about $1,000 each. So it was okay until that summer where I focused, all my energy on that, and I was selling 15, 20, 30 cars a month that summer.
Hmm.
And that's kind of, I was like, hey, this is it. I'm not going back, because my whole point of being in school was I was just trying to figure out how to make $5,000 a month, being an analyst or something. I was in a business, major. So once I started making 15, $30,000 a month, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go do this.
Yeah.
As much as
Yeah.
everybody was against it, because the dealer business, at least to my dad, it's a nasty business. It's just a killer be killed, wolf eat wolf type of thing, and they're not very educated guys, very very sharp street people, but not like your educational accolade type of guys. Um, so I didn't listen to him, obviously, and I just went and did it, and I scaled it, and I was living in my office for the first 6, 8 months, because I had like maybe 10 grand or so to my name, and I could have got an apartment, but I wanted to grow the business. So
Hmm.
I was living in the office, and then eventually I
Did
went
you have
into
employees at that point or not?
no, the first 6 months, no.
So that was
Uh,
you. Yeah.
that was everything was me. So I was basically
Yeah.
buying all the cars, I was cleaning them, I was washing them, I was putting them online, I was showing them, selling them, everything, doing the title work, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I guess after 6 months or so, I was able to I rented a room in somebody's house for like $500 a month, still trying to keep the money in the business until, it really took me 2 years or so because I kept jumping around location to location. I would find a place, I would outgrow it, and I would need to move somewhere else. And I think by the second or third year, I finally found somewhere where I could fit like 200, 300 cars.
Hmm.
And at that point, I had a couple of employees that were coming around with me, but that's where I really scaled it to, like 10, 15 or so employees that worked there full time, a bunch of sales guys, finance guys, detailers, mechanics, just the whole nine. And at this point, I was like 25 years old. I was selling over 100 cars a month. I was doing pretty good. I kind
A
of
little
achieved
more
all,
than your $1,000 a month to begin
a
with.
little more than $1,000 a month. Yeah, I didn't have to live in the office anymore. I was doing pretty well. Um, and I kind of reached all the goals that I thought was going to take me years to reach pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Within months actually. Once I set the goal, it was a matter of months before I reached it. Um, talk about manifesting and things like that. And then I basically, was looking for a bigger thing. I was like, okay, well, if I'm able to make, let's say, $1 million a year at 25, how do I make 10 million or $100 million a year? What do I need to do? So, I started looking around, just researching on the internet, trying to figure out a way, just looking for an answer, really. I don't know what. And then I stumbled upon, mergers, acquisitions, stumbled across your program, things like that. Because up until that point, I had no idea what an acquisition was, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just a founder of a car dealership, and it just never was, it came across my path. So yeah, that's how I kind of, began this next path of mergers, acquisitions, and then deciding if I'm going to do that, and then the industry to pick and all of that.
And then in the beginning, we picked, through that one-on-one mentoring, we picked, well, what about doing more of what you're doing? And in the car industry, we talked about going after some big hitters, and that was an interesting process. But I think ultimately you decided that it was a high barrier to entry. There was nowhere near the profit margin, maybe on the repair side, maybe, but on the selling of the cars. So, and I think to your credit, one of the things that a lot of people don't do is if the dog doesn't hunt, and you had, yours was a little tougher because you had some experience in scaling something pretty quickly. So that was really working. But if the dog doesn't hunt to where you want to get to, well, let me find the dog that will take me there.
Yeah.
And so we talked about a sector of real estate, which I think certainly within that first year, you pivoted to that. Probably within the 6 months, actually, you pivoted to that, and much higher margins. You went after some big hitters, put a board together. So following the steps was important. And how did putting the first board together work out for you?
Well, so I think we started talking like late 2019,
Right.
and we're discussing doing a roll up in the automotive industry, basically growing our franchise dealerships. And you taught me a lot of things on how to get to the top executives, and we worked on our scripts and things like, which worked very well. I had like the owners of these huge, huge dealerships that owned like a bunch of locations, talking with them, and like you said, the barrier to entry is very difficult, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with the franchise dealership, you're dealing with Honda and Toyota and their approval, which is very difficult. So I realized that this is going to take way too long. I'm just trying to close my first deal now and literally do a roll up, So I think once I figured out that this wasn't it, I pivoted to the industry that I'm in now, which is real estate related, and it took me a while to walk away from the dealership. By the time I decided what I'm going to do, it took me, I think, until like July, August of 2020 to fully walk away from it, which everybody thought I was crazy.
Because you're 20, 25, 26 years old at that point, right?
And I had built this huge thing, and in my mind, I'm like, look, I'm going to go do this. If I fail for whatever reason, I can always come back and do the car thing. That's easy.
Yeah.
But I want to go make 100 million, 10 million, 50 million, whatever it is, and it's going to take me forever to do it in this game. So I picked an industry, and then, obviously decided what the goal was going to be, and then start to sell that goal to potential board members. And then obviously LinkedIn is the best tool out there for this stuff. And just, connecting with people, reaching out, practicing with just regular folks, and then eventually to the guys that I really wanted to recruit.
Yep.
And
So you
eventually I
didn't
got
go to the big guys right out of the blocks.
no,
You had sold a lot, so you were pretty good on the phone or
yeah,
Zoom,
yeah, yeah.
but still you practiced.
For sure. Like
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good. I'm not gonna say I'm a great speaker, but I'm good at you know showing my dream and showing passion,
Hmm.
and I'm very enthusiastic about what I'm talking about, and I'm not just talking.
Hmm.
So I'm good at selling my dream, basically. So yeah, I definitely practiced with a bunch of guys that I knew I wasn't gonna pick anyway, but
Yeah.
just to get feedback and see what they're
What
saying.
works, what doesn't
What
work,
works,
what
correct.
connects well. Yeah.
Correct, and adjust, and just literally, I would record myself, and I would go back and watch the recordings, and I
Hmm.
would say, okay, what went well, where did I mess up, what questions did he ask me that I didn't know, just improving the whole thing, until I found the guy that I really wanted, and I eventually convinced him after many conversations, and after him telling me
So
no.
he didn't say
uh,
yes right out of the blocks.
no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. Because a guy like that, I mean, he has a lot to lose, and he has like
Yeah.
his whole reputation behind him, and I'm just some guy, you
Yeah.
know. It's like talking about going and doing a roll up in an industry I know nothing about, which I don't blame him. I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he told me, he was like, if you go do what you say you're gonna go do, you go find the rest of the board and all these things you're saying you're gonna do, and I'll be on board. And I asked him, I was like, well, can I leverage off of you? Can I say that you're on board, if I get these other things in place? And he said, sure. And
Okay.
in my mind, I was like, well, that's all I need. I
That's all
need,
I need.
yeah,
Now I got a stamp of approval.
correct. Yeah. And then everything else, because every other conversation I had after that, and I was like, hey, this guy is the chairman. They're like, I'm on, no
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
asked.
What's
So,
really interesting is that if you follow the steps, that works well. And I've had a couple of people
yeah,
along the way, maybe more than a couple, who have said to me, well, I'm a little nervous to talk to a chairman, or they didn't say it to me because I would have said no. And they went and built a board. And I remember one of them was, guy builds a board, tells me he built a board. I said, that's a mistake. Now I'm going to get the chair. So he goes and gets a chair that he wants. And the chair says to him, that sounds interesting, but I tell you, I want to meet these guys before I say yes.
yeah,
And so he ended up talking to the chair, talking to these board members. I told the mentee, be on that call so you can hear that. So the chairman does that and then comes back and gives his assessment, and he says, I don't think any of them are worth a damn. So if you want me, they're gone. If you
right,
want them, I'm gone. And
right.
so, but once he had that chair, and this happens as you just told over and over again, it's a stamp of approval. It's, well, if that guy's interested, he must see something in a mirror that
Correct.
is worth looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of these guys, I mean, they've been where we are,
Yeah.
right? They've been there to some extent, and it's hard to find someone that's like yourself, like,
Hmm.
I'm not even anything big, but I can't find anybody that is like myself, so it's hard to find people like that.
It's hard to
So when they
find good
see,
mentees,
yeah,
because,
exactly,
to some degree, maybe a large degree, you came over here. That was a tough move with your father.
yeah,
You started something. As with all of those stories, things didn't work out at points, and you
of
keep
course,
going as opposed to saying, well, this is too tough, I'm going to quit, you
yeah.
know? And
I
as
mean,
you
we talk
said,
about the
yeah,
successes, the failures are really what shape you. And
yes,
I think the trauma that you go through,
yep,
I think, a good amount of trauma is perfect as a child growing up.
yep.
Too much can maybe send you off the edge, but just a good amount is really good to keep you that drive.
Yeah, and that's what teaches you ultimately what you can persevere through,
Yeah,
what you can handle, what you can figure out. And you don't have to figure it out all yourself. Is that, having a good board, and boards are in transition. Some of the people you start with don't
yeah.
usually aren't the ones that you might have now. But how about that process? Did you have board members leave, die, whatever?
I did all of those.
Yeah,
Not
so it
leaving.
actually died.
I,
And that's not
yeah,
that unusual because it's usually older people.
yeah, yeah. I had a board member pass away for sure. It was actually my chairman.
Hmm.
I had a couple of board members I had to let go after that. I mean, it was gonna happen anyway, but he passed away, which was very unfortunate because as the chairman, as the first guy, as the guy I looked up to, he became a mentor of mine. We
Yeah.
were talking very, very, very often, and I would talk to board members, potential board members. I would tell him about it. We would all jump on a call, and we would do that with bankers. We would do that with a lot of guys. I wouldn't obviously bring him on the phone on every call, but once I had vetted the person and I was like, hey, this is the guy, then we would both jump on the call and,
Yeah.
kind of work it out.
Yeah. And a lot of people, and I think you'd agree with this. For me, the mentor that taught me this, I wouldn't learn this without that help. Same thing that you just mentioned.
Right.
And as much as they can guide you and be used in a call like you described, they can usually have enough scar tissue on them that they can say, you don't want to do that. I tried that, it doesn't work, and this is a better way to do it.
Right.
Certainly.
I think it's the bullshit alert. As you go business and as you learn things, you just have this gut instinct,
Yep.
where you can just tell, where something ain't right, and
Yep.
that's really all you need. I go with most of my decisions I make is based off gut instinct.
Yeah. So analyzing deals don't take you months, 5 or 10 minutes to see if the dog hunts or not?
No, I usually will decide right there on the phone, on the cold call,
Yeah.
if this is a deal or not within the first minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And
you
you
know-
used, different industries are different. Cold calls can work. They obviously worked in your industry. I don't think you did a whole lot of letters or emails or something to that. Most of them were cold calls.
I've sent them out, but mainly cold calls.
Cold calls. In some industries, healthcare in particular, these people are with patients, so that gets hard to get them on the phone. Are you a patient? What's this regarding, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So you put a board together. You got professionals. You did that.
Yep.
You still have the same professionals you started with, or did you change those?
You mean outside?
Outside. Yeah.
I still have them, but I don't use them. I use them for different things.
Yeah.
Since we're doing a lot of transactional things like that, and it's real estate related, I don't necessarily need a big four law firm or accounting firm to do closing documents for me. All the due diligence we do in house, because I am the.
Well, you
expert
built a
now.
team now, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So all that stuff we do in house, we just really have them just to prepare the closing documents, we read the title, we read the survey, things like that.
Yeah.
I have the original law firm that I had. He ended up moving and becoming a partner at another law firm, and so I ended up going with him. So it's been the same guy that I've been working with.
Same guy from the beginning. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And I have another law firm that does my deals and accounting firms and things like that. But yeah, I mean, we sold them on the process that you taught. Success fee basis. You're not getting paid unless we close the deal. We want 100% discount if the deal craters.
All the stuff that people say you can't do, right?
Very doable. People do it every day.
Yeah.
You can't get it done doesn't mean it's not getting done.
Correct. And then what people sometimes lose sight of is that in the beginning, you probably had no help. You were doing it all. You were making the phone calls. If you were sending letters, you were sending letters. Yeah, now you've got a team that can, work on the things you need them to work on, not only for maintaining the current real estate, but future deals that you're working on, right?
Correct. Yeah. So by the time I had put the board together and the accounting firm and law firm, and I had a bunch of LOIs together, and we had that first board meeting with everybody on there. And then after that, I think the first deal I closed was end of February of 2021. And then so from 2021, February, up until February of 2022, I had closed 13 deals.
Yeah.
So just about one every month. And I was the only guy. I was the only employee. The board is obviously they're not day to day. So I'm making all the cold calls. I'm finding all the deals. I'm going out and visiting these guys, doing the contracts, signing them, due diligence, closing, running the deal, turning it around, doing evictions, all kinds of stuff. Doing the property cleanup,
all the stuff and running the business.
Everything.
Yeah. And a lot of people forget that. that yes, now you've got an organization, but you didn't start that way. So those were busy days, and
Very busy. Very busy,
lots
yeah.
of time. You were still, or were you not still working the dealership at that point?
No, the dealership was shut down. That's was the
Yeah.
was the interesting part. It's like I had to make this work, you know.
Yeah.
There's no plan B, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the
Okay.
whole point of this. That was the
Yeah.
whole point of why I set it down, you know.
Yeah. And then you, if I remember right, you essentially sold it to the employees, right?
I
But
attempted to sell it to the employees, but none of them could come up with a significant amount of cash or
Yeah.
anything or credit to take over. So I decided to shut it down.
just totally shut it down. So you burned your bridges.
No, not at all. I mean, I had a bunch of cash sitting in a bunch of cars.
Well, I mean, in terms of the dealership, you shut that down
Oh,
because
yeah.
you wanted to make this work. So you didn't want the
Oh, yeah.
distraction of the dealership. Yeah. But yes, you would, especially from the hoping to do $1,000 a month, you had a bunch of cash, certainly, that you put together.
Yeah.
So the first couple of deals, people always talk about SBA. SBA wouldn't do the real estate deals that you had
Correct.
because of their requirements. So the first two deals, how did those come about and get financed and get closed?
I mean, I think just by, I want to say, it was a ton of cold calls and a ton of, getting, a lot of no's basically. I had found this deal that was very doable. I was buying it at a ridiculously cheap valuation. I had the money to close it. I didn't want to put my own money down, because I wanted to save my cash and just, kind of flaunt it to the banks and say, hey, look, I have the cash, but I want to keep it as reserves. I want to use your money, basically, or at least I have the credit to do it or things like that. So I got the bank to give me 110% of the purchase price. So
So
basically,
no money of yours.
$0 of mine.
Yeah.
They funded the whole deal. They funded the closing costs, and they gave me, a good amount of money to clean the property up, and because I had given them a budget of what I was going to spend some extra money on. But that was only because I had found a great deal from a guy that was dying. He was super motivated. His wife had just passed away. He was like 80-something years
So
old.
all those are sad situations, but for what we do, those are perfect
Yeah.
situations.
I
Highly
say like
motivated, right?
Yeah, highly motivated. I say it like that. It may sound messed up, but like in his point of view, I'm doing him such a great favor.
Yeah. He wants to
He's,
get rid of this.
He wants to get out so bad,
Yeah.
And this was beginning of 2021. So COVID is still very active. There's nobody. I think it was like lockdown at that point. When I
Yeah, it was
applying
still
for
locked down, which
Yeah,
is interesting because you didn't really miss a step, just the opposite during COVID. A lot of businesses did, but yours didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know, man. I know what these older. I know how these older guys operate. The baby boomers or the older generation. They're all about this. Be a man, right? Forget COVID. Forget all that whole
Yeah.
FML type thing. And that's kind of how I operate. I'm like
That
forget
kind of was how you were raised, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Making it happen no matter what.
Right.
So when you do show up in those environments, and we all know what's happening around the world, and you're here at my property making me an offer, I mean, you must be serious.
You must be serious. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
They,
of course, for sure.
yeah. So for those that think, well, I don't have money. Well, you did have money. You didn't use your money. So it was, in some ways, other than maybe confidence, it was the same as not having
It's
money.
mainly the confidence. It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
believing in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So they, and then, within the next, it sounds year, you got to 13. You're now at 25. They, if you look back on what you think made you successful and things that you would do differently, now, what comes to mind that might help people that watch this?
I think I have a very hard drive. I'm very hard-headed. I'm very I have a very strong grit. And if I want something, and I obviously analyze it, not like spreadsheet to that, but if it's a deal that it can make sense, I'm not gonna give up until I get it. So, that whole don't give up mentality, push until you get it, being aggressive and things like that. If I could change anything, I'd probably, in a perfect world, obviously, I would just go straight to what I'm doing now in 2019 and start closing deals then. Because, in real estate, it's very equity intensive. It takes a lot of, either your cash, somebody has to put up some money or something like that. And you can do seller finance deals like I did at the beginning and put a lot of deals together and then go and refinance them and pull cash out, and there's your equity to do more deals.
There's your equity to do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just takes time.
Yeah.
It took me a year to buy 12, 13 deals. So if I was starting in 2019, I'd probably be at 50 or so now.
The thing that you don't know is sometimes you got to go through some of that stuff to say, okay, what works, what doesn't work, what should I look for?
Yeah.
And 6 months, okay, it would have been nice if you did it quicker than that. But 6 months to decide, hey, we've looked at what you're doing now in the car industry. We found that too difficult. We found the margins not the same. Found a better industry, and then off you go. And so you're up to 25 now, I think, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a support system in what you've put together that takes care of a lot of running the business. You got an acquisition team as well, or do you still do most of that?
Yeah. I mean, I basically have guys do everything. I don't really need to do much. The only reason why I'm still, active is because I'm trying to do things a lot faster. So what I do is I just push. You know, I work.
And when you say push, you mean keep goals in front of people and push employees?
Correct.
Yeah.
Just basically lead them to the goal. Doing things that they don't even think is possible. They're just like, there's no way we can do it. And I'm like, yes, we can. Just do your part and it'll happen. And when you do that over and over and they see like, okay, this guy's not as crazy as we think he is.
They believe it.
And then they're on board,
Yeah. We always talk about John Kennedy saying that within 10 years we're going to put somebody on the moon when we had no idea how we could do that. And he didn't either. Well, that's cool. And then, I guess, I don't know, it might be 3 or 4 months ago now, we talked about, trying to decide what's next. And you had looked at some other industries perhaps, but the margin of what you're doing now is so great that doing what you're doing now, exiting partially, which is in process for you, that's going to be a nice payday. Take those chips off. Not what you want to achieve, but for most people doing this, they would go, wow, to do that within 5 years, not even 5 years yet, they would view as successful. But you got bigger goals than that now. You got bigger goals than that.
Yeah, I mean, I like to look at it in that way. I don't like to be like, oh, I'm so accomplished and I'm so successful. But then, like, mentally, you're going to slow down.
You're going to slow down.
I still look at myself as like, I hope I make it one day.
Yeah.
That type of attitude.
Yeah. And the partial exit, will allow you to, compensate some board members, compensate some employees, give you a pile of cash, and as you said, real estate can be pretty equity intensive in how you do it, and you can move faster then, right?
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of things. The relationships I've built with the banks nowadays. I mean, before it was very difficult to get money from them. Now, every deal I do, they give me a higher, first of all, they give me a higher money up front, and then they start building a whole bunch of stuff. For example, you get the occupancy to this, we'll give you another $1 million. You do this, we'll give you another $1 million. Just earnouts in the loans that they weren't offering before.
Yeah.
My goal is, next time around, just not put any money up. Say, hey, that these deals they hunt. I'm not putting any cash up. I'm just gonna, hold this off. But I just want to do the same thing I'm doing on just a massive scale.
Yeah.
Like buy some other businesses to integrate into our business that we use a lot, like contractors and pavers and things like that.
Yeah.
Just acquisitions
maybe
there.
Property management, something like that. So basically vertically integrate. Correct. So that I don't have to go out and hire somebody to do it. I have that capability within. Correct. And the other thing you said is that you will be able to get them to do what you want to do when you want to get it done, as opposed to, well, I got 3 other jobs in front of you kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you
Really
did.
it's the speed that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You did something. I'm not sure it was in the beginning, but certainly later on, that I would tell people just starting. Don't do that, and that is but you've gotten good at it. Now, I would tell people once they're established to be able to do it, but you did a lot of turnarounds.
Yes.
You fixed a lot of real estate, and so. You obviously know how to do that. You learned how to do that successfully. In the beginning, I don't know if the first 2 were turnarounds or not, but they were okay. So you navigated some pretty tricky waters, because most of the time turnarounds require much more time, much more capital to fix them, if you can fix them. But you had, I guess, the right people on your team, the right people on your board, your own push to be able to do those things,
Yeah, I just when I would do the math, the math made sense. You know? Like if you're trying to be in real estate and you're not trying to do some kind of turnaround in some way, shape, or form, I mean, why else would you get a good deal on it? If the building is a Class A building, it's 90% occupied, the rents are already at market rate.
What does somebody want to sell it for, right?
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So
But you better, if you're going to go down that path, and it's, I'm not going to say it's simpler, but things like occupancy rate, what if it's residential or commercial, what the rents are and what you can change with those kind of things. If you have a good feel for that. But you also, was the first one the seller finance deal?
The first one was the fully bank finance.
Fully bank finance.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you do seller finance deals or 100%?
I did seller finance deals after probably the second or third one.
Second or third. Okay.
Yeah, where I had to put maybe a small down payment down, and it was the deals I was making with the sellers was it was like, look, we're gonna give you like maybe 10, 20 or so % down, but you're not gonna get anything. And I was structuring it like this to get the bank to give me the rest.
Right.
I was structuring it where you're not getting any payments, anything for the next 24, 36 months. And then once I'm able to turn this property around, because you've let it go to shit.
Okay. Then I'm gonna pay
then
you.
I'm gonna cash you out and refinance.
Yeah. Okay. And to your credit, you did it. Because I've worked a lot of people that have made the mistake of doing that. Usually before I work with them. And if they don't know what they're doing, if they don't know what the problems are, it usually doesn't end well. But you were able to identify what the problems were, what we need to do, what the likelihood is that we can do it, and then structure them such that you kind of had that reasonably under control. The bank obviously did their due diligence and felt good about it. Yeah.
The banks, obviously they would send out appraisals. And when the appraisal comes back at like twice what you're purchasing it for, as is, turn around, like high best use or whatever is worth double that. If you just do your part, it's not easy. Like I've never owned a piece of real estate in my life.
Yeah.
I didn't own a house or anything like that. I just went out and did it. Same thing with a dealership. I never worked in a dealership to this day.
Yeah.
You just gotta pull the trigger sometimes, man.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to move forward and put the right people around you as well. So It's still, even though it was a quote unquote turnaround, the bank was still comfortable enough with, hey, the way it sits today, we're okay. We're okay. Yeah. So that's a big difference between, hey, it's losing money every month. We don't know where the cash flow is coming. Those are the kind of turnarounds that are extremely difficult unless you want to start writing checks. So you didn't have that.
It's challenging to do those deals, but you gotta just get done what you can get done.
Yeah.
A lot of times I think people they're too hesitant and they're like, I'm too good to do this deal that's like 6 hours away or whatever the hell it is, And I was willing to go do those deals just to get deals done.
Get started. Yeah.
Correct. get them done, and then I'm like, I can build some track record, I can build some experience, and then like nowadays, I'm still buying the same kind of deals. Like they're just, mom and pop operated. They don't have good books. To be quite frank with you, like they don't have like, I don't give the banks like tax returns, bank statements, P&Ls, any of it, because the sellers don't have it. They're just 85-year-old, 90-year-old guy, that doesn't have anything.
Yeah,
Banks
and
took it
most
to
of
money
the
because I have the track record now.
right, and most of the time, the age of these owners is typically older. If you look at your profile, it's usually older people that you're going to attract. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, because the younger guy's not going to let it go for that cheap.
Yeah.
If the guy's like 45, 50 years old, he knows the potential. He knows what's got to get done. Even though if he's not doing it, he just knows what it's worth, or he just cares too much.
Yeah.
The guy that's 80 years old, he's just ready to let it go.
Yeah. So you have a specific set of criteria. This is what we're hunting for. This is what we're looking for. It's obviously worked. Okay.
It's almost to the point where if I hear a young voice on the other side of the phone, I just end the conversation.
Yeah.
Because I know it's not gonna hunt.
Yeah. And that's true. I'd say across every single industry that I've had experience with. It's like, you want them to be maybe 55, but usually 60, 65 and older.
Correct.
Somewhere.
I've had guys pass away after signing the contract, like within a couple of weeks. I have 2 deals right now that one of them, and it's sad, I wish they weren't because it's making the deal more difficult. One of them has dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Since signing the deal, it's been like 2 months. He can't remember he signed the deal. His lawyer's freaking out. We're getting a power of attorney from his daughter to finish it. Another guy have us in the hospital. I mean, we're catching these guys like, on the last like year.
End of life, what you're describing.
End of their life.
Yeah. And you're right in that, that a lot of times, for all kinds of reasons, in that case, the one with dementia, maybe, and I don't know the circumstances, but maybe the daughter's like, what am I going to do? I don't want to have this property. I don't want to run this property.
Correct.
I don't even like this, and it took my father away from us for a long period of time, and So to your point, you solve a problem as well for the heirs, if you will.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
She lives in a different state. She doesn't want. If she wanted it, she would have been taken over it.
Right.
That's
right.
obvious, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think if you were to say to, what the formula of success is to people listening to this? Understand the steps, obviously, work like hard. Were there any hardships that you encountered that, and I know there were, but that you said, okay, I won't, make that mistake again, or I won't do that again? You talked about if you hear a young voice, that's the end of the discussion. But anything else that comes to mind in that regard?
You mean like, are you asking like mistakes and stuff that I made?
Yeah, with mistakes you learned from that.
Yeah, I would say that, like, there's a lot of mistakes you make. It's just from you have to learn. Like, for example, in due diligence, like trusting the sellers on what they present you. Just because it's on the P&L or your tax return doesn't mean that that's true. Just because it's money, cash going into the bank account doesn't mean that it's true. I've bought in a deal, 25, where literally the guy lied about everything. Lied on his tax returns, lied on the bank statements, lied on everything. Even when you went to the property, it looked like it was occupied. And I knew the challenges, I knew the risk. I was buying it for so cheap, where I made sense of it. I was like, well, even if there's nobody here, it still makes sense.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like somewhere in between, where it was probably like 50% true of what he thought and 50% true of what I thought. And then, hiring people, you bring people on that they pretend like they have good intentions and that they're actually trying to work with you and do these things, especially when you're giving away equity.
Yeah.
Where their only motive is just to get in the door, get their equity vested, kind of like the whole quiet quitting things, just barely do enough to stay there and then try to cash out on the equity, So this, the more successful you become, the more people try to take advantage of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it goes. Like the more money you have, the more money people want. whether it's sellers, employees, partners, everybody just from every corner
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
get their cut.
And I think the other thing you see, and maybe you experienced this, is a lot of people in the beginning, they're just happy to get anybody on a board. But as they go forward and they realize the boards are in transition, they begin to pay more attention to, hey, let me make this a hard club to get into. I'm just not going to take a body. I want to know what it is, as a place way back when that I worked, the CEO said, yeah, we're going to hire you, but because you were good in the interview, but when the real interview starts, your first 6 months. That's when we decide if we're going to still work together or not. And so, yeah.
And I mean, I'm even more aggressive than that. Like it depends on the role, but if it's like a cold calling role or something like that, I just tell them on the phone, I'm like, hey, this is going to be a 2-hour long interview. Come in and I'll tell you what to do. And usually, I make them come in on like a Friday evening at like 6 p.m., 5 p.m. during rush hour. And then when they get here, I give them a phone.
Doofus tests, right?
Yeah, I give them a phone and I give them a list. I'm like, hey, this is what you're going to do for the next 2 hours or 1 hour. You're going to make cold calls, and I want to see how you are.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm looking for any skilled salesman. I'm just looking to see, are you going to do what I want you to do?
Yeah.
Or are you going to find a way, are you going to find an excuse on how not to do it? It's the attitude and all that stuff that's very important.
Yeah, it sure is. One of the things that saved me a ton of bad hires, and you got to work around labor laws certainly, but people can fool you obviously in an interview.
Yeah.
But what I used to say once I learned this was, come work a day for us. We'll pay you for a day, and you'll see us, we'll see you. Right. And you work with somebody for 8 hours or whatever it turns out to be, and you see how they behave and what they volunteer, or as you said, what do they not want to do. You have a much better feel, better feel. Right. But yeah.
And you got to get to the point where you're training your guys to kind of like for example, I have my operators that are under me that they also have the ability to hire and fire people. And, I have a really good bullshit alert. Like I said earlier, like I'll tell them like, hey, that guy that you hired, he's not it.
Mm-hmm.
You let him go now. He's like, no, he's great. He's just, and I'm like, okay, fine. Because I want him to learn. I want him to pick himself. A week goes by, 2 weeks goes by. He's like, Amir, how the hell did you know?
How did you know that? Because you've seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. Again, I'm glad to, and you're honored, but I'm honored that you're in the Pantheon. You've certainly earned it. People will learn a lot from this. I'm excited to hear your exit when that happens, and how you move to the next step. And there's no question in my mind you'll do that. So thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you. And to all your listeners, like, hey, if you have the ability to work with a guy like Bruce that obviously knows the game, I mean, it's actually quite a good deal for what you're getting. The value that you're getting compared to what it costs and whatever it is. I mean, it's you spend more money on that, like on dinners in a month or so.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth it. And you gotta use your resources. It's like the board. I don't think we mentioned this. I wanted to mention, like, using the board. A lot of these guys are like, what do I ask the board to do? What do I not ask them to do? Make them do stuff. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. A lot of people end up saying to me, well, I don't want to ask the board because they'll think I'm stupid. Well, guess what? They're going to think you're stupid if you don't ask.
Correct.
Yeah.
Imagine how they look at you if you brought this guy on, you're giving him a few points, and he does nothing.
Right.
They're like, well, then what's up with this guy?
What's up with this? And you said you wanted an experienced team, but you never used the team.
Right.
So you got a toolbox that you never opened. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And for me, because people say, well, why do you do this? And it, as I said before, it's hard to find. It really is hard to find good mentees that are driven, that don't get knocked off their game because of the setbacks, which you're going to have. And so in that regard, you really do fit that mold. I have no question you're going to be successful. You already have been, but you'll get a lot further in this game. That's for sure. So
I
good.
appreciate it. I look
Okay.
forward to sharing it with you when the exit happens.
We'll
Thank
do
you.
it. Keep pushing. Okay. Good talking to you, Amir. Yep. Thank you. Bye bye.